Thank you for plugging into this Family Life News podcast, streaming issues-driven, family-focused news. And welcome back to another edition of Capital Connection. Fridays during the Noon Report, we give you, the listener, direct connection to what's happening in Harrisburg and Albany with the experts on the issues at the state capitals. They are, as always, Michael Geer with the Pennsylvania Family Institute and Jason McGuire with New Yorkers for Constitutional Freedoms. Jason, let's begin with you. If I had $1 for every New Yorker who says, I'm sick of things, I'm moving out of this state, I'd be a millionaire. But you have got an event coming up to, in a constructive way, sort of fight back for your rights in the Empire State. Tell us about Legislative Day 2020, which is coming up soon at the state capitol.
Yeah, Legislative Day is our annual lobbying day in Albany. Last year we had about 1,200 people. We're hoping to push to 1,500 this year. And it's really, we're just believers all across the state come to the state capitol. They hear from speakers like Michael Ferris of the Alliance Defending Freedom. You're going to hear from folks like David Barton of Wall Builders. And we believe that this is going to be a strong emphasis on parental rights. Whether it's the HPV vaccine or it's going to be mandatory sex education or a host of other issues, parental rights seem to be moving to the forefront this legislative session, and we want to give parents the ability to speak out for their rights before the state legislature coming up in just a couple of weeks here.
All right, we'll talk more about parental rights, a story out of Rochester that should please our audience in a little bit. But, Michael, while we're plugging events, you've got one coming up here in May 18th. That's a Monday at 11 a.m. State Capitol, the first ever March for Life in Harrisburg. Why did you feel it's so important to do this year?
Well, there's so many reasons why it's so important that pro-life Pennsylvanians come to our state capitol and express a voice for the unborn, for the sanctity of life from conception until natural death. The most recent reason to point at is Governor Wolf's proposed budget includes $3 million for Planned Parenthood, the nation's biggest abortion store, basically, millions of abortions that Planned Parenthood does every year. The governor has $3 million in his proposed budget for Planned Parenthood. That's, in my view, payback for the millions of dollars that Planned Parenthood gave the governor for his election and re-election.
Yeah.
This is the kind of thing that we have going on, and we need to take a stance for the sanctity of life and tell our legislature and our governor no more of this.
Yeah, Teresa Miller doubled down on that yesterday, saying, no, that money's not going to abortion, but we'll see. That's kind of some fuzzy math, how they break that down. Jason, you mentioned parental rights, a big issue at this year's Legislative Day event. When it comes to sex education, that is a huge issue. There's legislation in Albany that would mandate sex ed as early as kindergarten. One of the mayors in upstate New York, not a mayor that you would think would take this stand, is saying, hold on a minute, let's hit the pause button here. Explain that if you would.
Yeah, Mayor Lovely Warren of Rochester, New York, recently came out opposing both the mandate for HPV vaccinations and also the mandatory sex education the legislature is considering. And I'll tell you, one of the reasons why she did that is she had a meeting with a local pastor, Pastor Kevin Pesky of First Bible Baptist Church, who also serves as a Christian school through his church. He met with her. They had a conversation about parental rights, and Mayor Lovely Warren has come out on our side in both of those issues. Now, she's a progressive mayor. She's very liberal in many respects, but she gets the parental rights issue, and that should give us hope all across the state that one pastor, one Christian school administrator can make a difference with elected officials in standing up for parental rights.
All right, we'll see where that goes. Philadelphia's faith-based foster care in the news. The U.S. Supreme Court agreeing to hear this case. Probably won't happen until the fall, Michael, but this is a huge issue. With a 5-4 conservative majority now, what do you think the chances for success here will be?
Well, we're very hopeful in that case, and it has to do with the city of Philadelphia telling Catholic charities that they cannot do adoptions or foster care in that city unless they agree to place children in same-sex couple homes or in the homes of unmarried couples. And what's notable about this, it takes 4 justices to vote to decide to hear a case. So we know in all likelihood there's probably 4 that are supportive of the Catholic charities in this case. And in all likelihood, they wouldn't have chosen to go ahead and hear this case unless they had some confidence that we'd get a 5-4 decision in support of Catholic Charities in this case. Of course, we don't know for sure how it's going to play out, and the case has to be heard, but it's a very positive sign right off the bat.
All right, and again, we'll get another big story out of Philadelphia in just a minute, so hold tight there, Michael, but let's go back to Albany. Jason, the governor this week enlisting the support of houses of worship to help get the word out about the census. What's his thinking this year in kind of coming alongside clergy with this once-a-decade head count?
Well, I think the governor is paying very close attention to the fact that we're probably going to lose 1 or 2 congressional districts based on population loss here in New York, and with that also comes a loss of funding if our numbers come in underreported, if you will. I do encourage people to participate in the census. It does matter, especially upstate. You want to make sure that you have representation in matters of funding and in congressional matters. But my concern is the governor, I believe, is specifically targeting undocumented immigrants, illegal aliens, encouraging people to register in that census as residents of the state, even though they may not be citizens of this state.
All right, if you're just joining us, this is Capital Connection. Every Friday during the noon report, we take 10 minutes and spotlight the weighty issues in the news from Albany and Harrisburg with a couple of guys who definitely know what's going on. They are in the weeds, as they say. Michael Geer at the Pennsylvania Family Institute and Jason McGuire with New Yorkers for Constitutional Freedoms. Michael, let's go back to Philadelphia and these heroin safe zones, which we have talked about on this program before. You've raised awareness about this and how dangerous you think this will be. But barring legal action, the first in the nation heroin safe zone is due to open in Philly next week. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, that's what it's looking like after a court ruled that these were not in violation of federal law. Again, we think there'll be additional court action, but there's also significant protests already erupting in Philadelphia with residents in South Philadelphia, which is where the first of these is scheduled to open next week, saying that they basically have been ambushed. This place where they want to put this injection site, so-called safe injection site, is a place where it's a kind of a shopping district. There's schools and a daycare center right nearby, and residents are up in arms about this because of what they think it's going to cause in their neighborhood. We think it's a dangerous precedent to suggest that we're going to give in to the opioid epidemic and just let people basically inject themselves and continue this dangerous addiction and dangerous practice with government sanction.
Jason, Siena College put out an interesting poll this week. I'm sure you saw it. It showed that 6 of the, I think there are now 8, Democratic presidential candidates still left standing would beat President Trump in New York in a head-to-head matchup. But still, this very same poll showed that nearly 2/3 of New York voters think the president will win re-election. Explain that, if you would.
Well, I think it shows that here in New York, folks are saying that those candidates, though they may still be standing, are hobbling to the finish line. The reality is that New York, California are outliers, and then there are a lot of places in middle America that recognize that the country is not ready for a Bernie Sanders socialism, and that ultimately they believe that Donald Trump will be victorious in November.
Yeah. Joe Biden, Michael, is polling well in Pennsylvania, native of Scranton. A lot of people think he'll win that in April, but he could be in trouble if he doesn't pull off a slam dunk tomorrow in South Carolina. Officials are saying he's got to win that. How worried are Pennsylvania Democrats about a Democratic socialist like Bernie Sanders headlining a presidential ticket? What kind of an impact could that have on those down-ballot races in a state like Pennsylvania?
Well, as is happening around the country, a lot of sort of mainstream, quote-unquote, Democrats or Democratic operatives are concerned about a Bernie Sanders candidacy, and that's true here in Pennsylvania, although he is right now in the latest poll the only Democratic candidate that shows the ability to beat President Trump in Pennsylvania, interestingly. But I think as his candidacy, if it continues in Pennsylvania and word comes out about what he really stands for and stopping fracking and coal mining and so many other things that are part of his agenda, I think his support is going to diminish. And the other thing is the bulk of his support is among young people who historically don't vote. And Pennsylvania is a state where voting skews much older than many other states.
All right. That will have to be the last word this week, but if you're interested in attending Legislative Day 2020 at the New York State Capitol, just a few weeks away now, Jason, where can they go and get that done?
albanyupdate.com.
And register as well. March for Life in Harrisburg will be here before you know it in May. Where can folks find out more, Michael?
pafamily.org.